Hello, grifters and girlfriends. My name is TB Skine, and late tonight, my roommate burst into my room and said, "Hey, let's go watch Birds of Prey." And so we did. We caught a very late showing of the film. We were pretty much the only people in the theater, and I really liked it. I thought it was an extremely fun, very crunchy, kick-ass R-rated action movie. Margot Robbie gives a kick-ass physical performance as Harley Quinn. You can really tell that this is a character that she desperately wanted to play, to the point where she's even the executive producer on the movie. And while it certainly has some flaws, and we'll get to those later, I think it's a really strong solo movie for Harley Quinn, except, of course, it's not really a solo movie for Harley Quinn, and we'll talk about that later, but in terms of emancipating the character from the Joker, which is quite literally the title of the film, it does a great job of establishing Harley as a character on her own and setting up the kind of world that she inhabits and the kinds of things that she gets up to. And specifically what she gets up to is making a goddamn mess out of everything, including herself, which is very much at the core of the film. As the movie opens, the Joker has finally definitively dumped Harley Quinn. We're not really given any insight into why they split up or what happened with the relationship, because it's not really important. What the movie's concerned with is what Harley does afterwards. And what she does is paint a big, bright target on her own back for everybody who wants to get back at her for anything that she has ever done while she was running with the Joker's protection. So Harley's story is very much about chickens coming home to roost. She has to quite literally deal with her past in order to move forward into something else. And in that respect, it places Harley very squarely in the modern interpretation of Harley Quinn. Now, I discussed this in my previous video, What's the Deal with Harley Quinn, where I go into great detail about the many versions of Harley Quinn that have existed and the various different ways that they conceptualize the character, and this is very much in the vein of modern Harley Quinn. A Harley Quinn who is essentially divorced from the Joker, not in the sense that he has no influence over her or isn't important to her story anymore, but that her story doesn't revolve around the relationship with him anymore. And this ties it very much into the same portrayal that they're giving Harley Quinn in the DC Universe animated series that she's currently got running, as well as the modern canonical portrayal of the character in her solo comic books. And indeed, it seems to be from the solo Harley Quinn comic books that the movie draws most of its inspiration for its story beats and characterizations of Harley Quinn and her supporting characters. So if anyone was going in there expecting to see a story about, classic Harley Quinn in the style of the animated series or Suicide Squad Harley Quinn, they're definitely going to be disappointed, because this movie isn't interested at all in having anything to do with that. While Robbie is largely continuing the same style of characterization she gave the character in Suicide Squad, this is very much a character who is divorced from the sort of sexually aggressive punk rock pinup girl that she was in that particular movie. Harley Quinn in this movie is much more concerned with her own internal life and the emotional and just, practical train wreck that it has become, which is where we get to the supporting characters, because while Birds of Prey is very much Harley Quinn's movie, she's not the only main character, and in some ways, she's not even the most important character in the film. The plot of the movie revolves much more around Ella J. Basco's Cassandra Cain, which, if you're a comics fan, is a name you might recognize as one of the Batgirls in the DC Extended Batman universe. That doesn't come into play in this movie. In fact, like the Joker, Batman is a complete non-presence in the film. Like, he's referred to, but he's not a factor in the movie. Like, none of the criminals are ever worried that the Batman might show up at some point. Joining Harley and Cassandra, we've got Rosie Perez playing fan-favorite character Renee Montoya, a police officer in the Gotham PD. We've got Mary Elizabeth Winstead taking up the title of the Huntress, and she does a really interesting turn with that particular character. In the story, Huntress is someone who has spent pretty much her entire life training to be a badass, super strong assassin, but who doesn't really know how to do anything else, including relate to other people, which makes for a really interesting characterization by Winstead. And Huntress ends up weirdly the most charming and adorable, at least in my opinion, of all the characters in the film. Rounding them all up, we've got Journey Smollett-Bell as Black Canary, who very much takes on the role of being the most emotionally well-adjusted and certainly most grounded of all the characters in the group, basically playing the role of the one moral straight man in the entire story. And Birds of Prey is very much an ensemble movie about all of these characters, and it's very much about all of them dealing with a common problem in their lives, which also makes up the theme, at least as far as I can make out, of the movie. They have all of them been abused, taken advantage of, or otherwise screwed over by men. And Ewan McGregor, who does an absolutely amazing turn as Black Mask, aka Roman Sionis, is very much constructed to be an avatar of all the worst parts of male entitlement and misogyny in his characterization. The movie makes a very explicit point about showing the ways in which he enacts misery and sadism and pain and humiliation on women specifically. And Birds of Prey isn't that way, a movie with something on its mind. Now, it's not like a high-minded academical deep dive into the psychology of misogyny in modern society or anything like that. It's a crunchy action movie where people get their legs broken in torturous detail. But much in the same way that the best Batman stories tend to involve Batman dealing with a villain who embodies some kind of evil in the world or some kind of challenge to his morality, especially the Joker with his nihilistic outlook is often cast in that role, so too do the Birds of Prey stand in for a villain who embodies some of the challenges that they experience in their lives, specifically the ways in which they've been hurt, betrayed, neglected, and otherwise done wrong by men. Which, of course, has predictably led people with tremendous brainworms to get really, really angry at this movie for reasons that I'm not going to waste brain cells trying to parse out because it is inevitably incredibly stupid. Now, Birds of Prey is absolutely not for everybody. Like I said, the film definitely has weaknesses. Like most superhero movies, its middle section kinda sags, and much like its R-rated cousin Deadpool over at Marvel, the movie spends a lot more time on action scenes and dynamic stylism than it does telling anything like, a deep and comprehensive story. And I'm not making the comparison to Deadpool randomly here, because much like the first Deadpool movie, this movie very confidently pulls off a clever little trick in its structural editing, setting up and jumping back and forth between multiple converging plot threads that then, by the end of the second act, converge into one blowout final action scene and a confrontation with the villain. The film is structured around the conceit that Harley Quinn is trying to tell you the story of what happens in the movie, and because she's easily distracted and a little bit crazy, she jumps back and forth, forgets to tell you certain things, so the movie kind of splits back and forth in time between various time periods to set up the necessary pieces in order to set up the final confrontation of the film. And while you're watching it, it works fantastically because you're always kind of on the edge of your seat and unsure of 100% of everything that's going on. And because the movie is sporadically filling in the necessary plot holes that it itself created in order to fill them in, you ideally end up going along for the ride and just settling into the manic craziness of it all. But much like in Deadpool, the unusual structure kind of conceals the fact that not very much happens in this movie when you get right down to it. There isn't a lot of deep psychological character development for anyone in the film, really, not even the title character, Harley Quinn, and that might be a weakness of the film depending on what you go in expecting to see. Because yes, this movie is about Harley Quinn, and it's an ensemble cast of a bunch of very kick-ass characters that are a lot of fun to hang out with. But there also isn't that much in there in terms of character arcs, in terms of characters coming to terms with flaws or working on themselves or developing or moving on from things. Harley basically spends the whole movie moving on from her relationship with the Joker, and the final confrontation with Black Mask is very much cast in that light. Like, that's the process of her overcoming her dependence and her insecurities and so on. And that kind of weakens Black Mask a little bit as a villain to me, because he is very much cast as a stand-in for other things, which, while Ewan McGregor gives a fantastic performance, it's a lot of fun to see, and there clearly is a character there, means that he's never really as much of a character as, for example, you might expect the Joker to be. And so my feeling walking out of Birds of Prey was that it's a fantastic movie, it's a lot of fun, and I definitely want to watch it again, but it's also a little bit thin. I won't say shallow, because I don't think it is, but it is a little bit thin. There isn't that much meat on the bones. It's lean, it's sparse, and it doesn't fuck around with anything. Like, there are multiple points in the film where the filmmakers are clearly assuming that you've seen a comic book movie before, you know how these plots are supposed to play out, so the characters are just going to play out the plot the way it's supposed to play out, and you're going to go along for the ride without needing a lot of explanation or justification because, well, you've seen a movie before and we want to get to the next action scene. So I can definitely see someone walking into Birds of Prey with different expectations and coming away kind of disappointed that it wasn't as, meaty and down to the bone of the characters as they thought it was going to be. But for me, I walked in expecting to see a vaguely superhero-themed R-rated action movie, and that's exactly what I got. With a bunch of fun performances, a bunch of very cool, well-realized characters, a whole lot of excellent character design. I should really do a video about that at some point. And Margot Robbie doing Harley Quinn things and having as much fun as I think it's possible for anyone to have while doing a movie. So yeah, I recommend it, and I recommend that you go watch it while it's still in theaters, because a lot of the needle drops in this movie are frickin' epic, and they work a lot better on the giant audio system of a cinema rather than through the headphones while you're watching it on streaming services, where it will probably be hitting fairly soon. Hey, thank you very much for watching. I'm gonna tell you the thing that every single YouTuber on the face of the earth tells you and say, hey, like, comment, and subscribe, please, because the like button number going up actually matters, because it's the algorithm and a whole bunch of stuff that I don't fully understand and I can't explain, but I need the number on the thing to go up, so please click the like button and the subscribe button, and maybe also the bell icon, because YouTube tracks all of that stuff, and that's why it's important because of some reasons. If you'd like to help me get free of the algorithm and not have to worry about it so much, well, Patreon is there for that. I have also got a tip jar down in the description, and I've got a merchandise store, and so many things I have to pitch. But like, there's ways for you to help me out directly, and that direct help actually makes a huge amount of difference. Like, for online content creators, especially YouTubers, a $1 donation can literally be the same as thousands of views on a video. So at the end of my videos, I try to encourage people that even if they don't want to support me, which is completely fine, believe me, I get it, but if you do have content creators whose work you enjoy, please consider supporting them directly whenever you can with whatever you can, because even those small donations that don't feel like very much actually matter a great deal more than you think. Anyway, if you haven't enjoyed this video, then you should feel free to hit the dislike button down below, because no matter what button you hit, YouTube still harvests your data. Go on, feed them. They are hungry for your numbers.